Marcus Webb stood in the long line at the security checkpoint, watching the alien delegates ahead of him. The space station was massive, bigger than anything humanity had built. Its walls gleamed with strange metals, and lights pulsed in colors he had no names for. This was Galactic Commerce Station Theta 9, and Marcus was the first human ever invited to the security summit. He clutched his briefcase and tried not to look nervous. Around him, beings from 100 different worlds waited their turn. Some had scales, some had feathers, and some looked like they were made of living crystal. They all seemed comfortable here, like this was normal. For Marcus, everything was new and slightly terrifying. The security checkpoint was run by the Zarthians, an insectoid race known throughout the galaxy for their strict rules. The chief security officer was named Zurkon. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and compound eyes that seemed to see everything at once. His chitinous armor was deep blue and reflected the station lights. Marcus watched as each delegate presented their defensive item for inspection. The rules were clear. Everyone could bring exactly 1 item for personal protection. No more, no less. A delegate from the Krynoth Empire stepped forward. He was massive, covered in thick fur, with tusks that curved from his lower jaw. He placed a shimmering energy shield generator on the scanner table. The device hummed with power, creating a faint blue bubble around its owner. "Personal shield generator Mark 7, Zurkon said, checking his datapad. "Approved." Next came a Vryn ambassador. The Vryn were bird-like, with long, elegant necks and feathers that changed colors when they moved. She presented a neural disruptor, a weapon that could shut down an attacker's nervous system without permanent damage. "Standard defensive weapon," Zurkon confirmed. "Approved." One by one, the delegates showed off their technology. Plasma deflectors, kinetic dampeners, molecular barriers. Each item was more advanced than the last. Each one proof of a civilization that had conquered the stars centuries ago. Then it was Marcus's turn. He stepped up to the scanner table and reached into his jacket pocket. The aliens nearby watched with mild curiosity. What would the human bring? What technology could Earth offer that would impress the galactic community? Marcus placed his defensive item on the table. It was a Swiss Army knife. The red plastic case was scratched from years of use. The white cross on the side had faded slightly. It was about 4 inches long when closed, and it looked completely ordinary. It looked old. It looked simple. It looked like a toy. Zurkon's antennae twitched. He picked up the knife with 2 of his 4 hands, turning it over slowly. "What is this?" he asked. "It's a Swiss Army knife," Marcus said, "made on Earth. It has 47 different features." "Features?" Zurkon clicked his mandibles together. "Explain." Marcus took the knife back and began opening it. First came the main blade, then the smaller blade, then the scissors, the screwdrivers, the can opener, the bottle opener, the saw, the file, the hook, the tweezers, the toothpick. He kept pulling out more tools, each one folding from the body of the knife. There's also a magnifying glass, a ruler, a wire stripper, pliers, a corkscrew, an awl, a compass, and an LED light, Marcus said. "Among other things, it's a multi-tool." Behind him, someone laughed. Marcus turned and saw a Vryn delegate, not the ambassador from before, but a younger one with bright purple feathers. The alien was clearly amused. "A knife?" the Vryn said, his voice high and musical. "The human brings a primitive blade while we carry technology that can stop projectiles moving at hypersonic speeds." Other delegates began whispering. Marcus felt his face grow hot, but he kept his expression calm. Zurkon examined the knife more closely. He tested the blade with one claw, opened and closed the scissors, pulled out the magnifying glass. "This is your defensive item?" he asked Marcus. "This is what you choose to protect yourself?" "Yes," Marcus said simply. It is not electronic. It has no power source. It is made of metal and plastic. Zurkhan paused. But it is technically one item with multiple functions, not multiple items. The rules do not forbid this. He stamped Marcus's datapad with approval and handed back the knife. You may proceed. Marcus pocketed the knife and walked through the scanner. Behind him, he could hear more laughter and whispered comments in languages he didn't understand. He didn't need to understand the words to know what they meant. The aliens thought he was foolish. They thought humans were primitive. They thought Earth had nothing to offer. The Krynoth delegate he had seen earlier walked past him in the corridor beyond security. The massive alien looked down at Marcus with something like pity in his eyes. "Human," he rumbled. "You are brave to come here so unprepared. When danger comes, your little knife will be useless." "Maybe," Marcus said, "or maybe it's exactly what I'll need." The Krynoth snorted and walked away, his shield generator humming at his belt. Marcus made his way to the conference sphere, the huge chamber where the summit would take place. It was a massive room with a transparent dome showing the stars outside. Delegates were finding their seats, which were designed to accommodate dozens of different body types. The human chair looked almost comically simple compared to the others. Marcus sat down and placed his briefcase beside him. He could feel eyes on him from all directions. The human, the newcomer, the primitive one with the little knife. He took a deep breath and patted his jacket pocket, feeling the familiar weight of the Swiss Army knife. His grandfather had given it to him 20 years ago before he died. "Always be prepared," the old man had said. "You never know what kind of problem you'll face, so bring the tools to solve any of them." Marcus had carried that knife every day since. It had opened packages and tightened screws. It had fixed broken equipment and cut through tangles. It had helped him in 100 small ways over the years. Now, sitting in a space station orbiting a binary star system surrounded by aliens who thought humans were backward and weak, Marcus wondered if his grandfather's advice would be enough. The summit was about to begin. Marcus opened his briefcase and prepared for the long negotiations ahead. His knife stayed in his pocket, ready and waiting. He had no idea how soon he would need it. The conference sphere filled with delegates as the summit began. High Counselor Vexnor, a being made of what looked like living smoke, opened the proceedings. His voice echoed through translation devices that everyone wore. "We gather to discuss security, trade, and peace among our worlds," Vexnor said. "Let us begin with respect and end with understanding." Marcus listened as different species presented their concerns. The Krynoth wanted better protection for their mining colonies. The Vryn needed trade routes secured from pirates. The Zelthari, a race of aquatic beings in environment suits, worried about contamination of water worlds. During a break in discussions, Marcus stood and stretched. He had been sitting for 3 hours and his back ached. Several delegates had left the sphere to get refreshments or use facilities designed for their biology. Suddenly there was a sharp crack of sound. One of the Vryn delegates, an older male with gray feathers, dropped his data tablet. The device hit the floor and sparked. The screen went dark. "No!" the Vryn cried. "My notes! The trade agreements!" Several technicians rushed over. They were from different species, all employed by the station. A Zarthian tech picked up the tablet and examined it. "The data core is damaged," she said. "The memory banks are corrupted. We will need to take this to the workshop. It will take several hours to repair, possibly longer." The Vryn delegate looked devastated. "But we need those agreements for this afternoon's session. Without them, we cannot proceed with the votes." Marcus walked over. "May I take a look?" The technicians turned to him. The Zarthian's antennae twitched in what Marcus had learned was confusion. "You are a technician?" she asked. "No," Marcus said, "but I've fixed a lot of broken things." The Vryn delegate had nothing to lose. He nodded. "Please, if you can help." Marcus took the tablet and sat down on a nearby bench. He pulled out his Swiss Army knife and selected the small Phillips head screwdriver. The aliens watched as he carefully removed the screws from the back of the device. "What is he doing?" someone whispered. "Using primitive tools," another answered. Marcus ignored them. He lifted the back panel off and examined the inside of the tablet. The technology was far beyond Earth's, but the basic principles were the same: power source, data storage, connections between components. He could see where the impact had jarred a connection loose. He pulled out the knife's magnifying glass and looked closer. There, a tiny wire had snapped. It was almost invisible, barely thicker than a hair. "Do you have any conductive wire?" Marcus asked the technicians. "Yes, but we would need precision tools to—" "I've got this," Marcus said. He selected the wire strippers from his knife and carefully worked with the broken connection. The tools were designed for Earth electronics, but metal was metal and connections were connections. His hands were steady as he stripped a tiny bit of insulation and used the knife's small pliers to twist the wires back together. Then he used the tweezers to position everything correctly and the small blade to scrape away some corrosion he found on a contact point. "Turn it on," Marcus said, handing the tablet back. The Vryn delegate pressed the power button. The screen flickered, then came to life. All his data was there, perfectly intact. "By the star winds," the Vryn breathed. "You fixed it. In less than 10 minutes, you fixed it." The technicians looked shocked. The Zarthian tilted her head. That should have required a full diagnostic and specialized repair equipment. Marcus closed his knife and put it back in his pocket. Sometimes you just need the right tool and a little patience. The Vryn delegate bowed his head, a sign of respect in his culture. "Thank you, human. You have saved the afternoon session. I am Ambassador Tilrek, and I am in your debt." "Just Marcus," he said, "and you're welcome." Word of the repair spread quickly. During the next break, a delegate from the crystalline species approached Marcus. One of the decorative clasps on her environment suit had broken, and it was bothering her. Marcus used the small scissors to trim away the broken piece and the file to smooth the rough edges so it wouldn't catch on anything. Later, someone needed to open a sealed container of ceremonial drink for a traditional toast. The mechanism was stuck. Marcus used the can opener function, modified his approach, and got it open without spilling a drop. The delegate thanked him profusely, explaining that spilling the drink would have been a terrible insult to his culture. Each time, the aliens seemed surprised. Each time, Marcus simply used another feature of his knife and solved the problem. Ambassador Tilrek sat down next to Marcus during one of the breaks. The Vryn studied him with bright, intelligent eyes. "Your tool," Tilrek said. "It is remarkable. Not because it is powerful, but because it is versatile." "That's the idea," Marcus said. "On Earth, we have a saying, preparation meets opportunity. My grandfather taught me to always be ready for whatever comes." "Your world must be very unpredictable," Tilrek observed. Marcus smiled. "You could say that. We've got extreme weather, natural disasters, political conflicts, and a million little problems that pop up every day. Humans learned a long time ago that we need to adapt. We're not the strongest species on our own planet, and we're definitely not the most advanced in the galaxy. But we're good at solving problems with what we have." Tilrek's feathers rippled in thought. "The others mock you. They think your knife is primitive." "Let them," Marcus said. "I'd rather be useful than impressive." During the next session, the lights in the conference sphere flickered. It was brief, maybe half a second, but Marcus noticed. So did some of the others. Zurkon and his security team checked their equipment. "Minor power fluctuation," Zurkon announced. "Nothing to concern yourselves with. The station has redundant systems." The session continued, but Marcus felt uneasy. He had noticed something about the flicker. It had a pattern to it. 3 quick pulses, then darkness, then back to normal. That wasn't random. That was deliberate. He didn't say anything, not yet. Maybe he was being paranoid. Maybe it really was just a glitch. But Marcus pulled out his knife and checked that all the features still worked. He tested the blade, the light, the screwdrivers. Everything was fine. He put it back in his pocket, but kept his hand near it. Around him, the delegates argued about trade percentages and security zones. They trusted the station, trusted the technology, trusted that everything would work as designed. Marcus trusted his instincts, and his instincts said something was wrong. Zurkhan stood by the wall monitoring his security feeds. Marcus caught his eye and saw something there. Concern, maybe, or suspicion. The security chief had noticed the pattern, too. Whatever was happening, it wasn't over. The summit continued, but Marcus stayed alert. His fingers brushed against the knife in his pocket. His grandfather's words echoed in his mind. Always be prepared. Marcus had a feeling he was about to find out just how prepared he needed to be. The lights flickered again 30 minutes later. This time they stayed off for 3 full seconds before returning. Delegates looked up nervously. The temperature in the conference sphere had also changed. It was getting warmer. Zurkhan spoke quickly into his communication device. His mandibles clicked together rapidly, a sign of stress in his species. He walked to the center of the room and raised one of his 4 arms for attention. "Delegates, please remain calm," he said. "We are experiencing technical difficulties. My team is investigating." Technical difficulties? The Krynoth delegate stood, his massive frame intimidating even when he wasn't trying. "This station is supposed to be the most secure facility in the sector. What is happening?" Before Zurkhan could answer, the lights went out completely. Emergency lighting kicked in after a moment, bathing everything in dim red light. Then an alarm began to sound. It was high-pitched and urgent. "That is the environmental alert," someone said. Zurkhan's communication device crackled. Marcus could hear shouting on the other end, multiple voices overlapping. The security chief's expression, difficult to read on his insectoid face, showed clear signs of distress. "The life support system has been compromised," Zurkhan announced. "Backup systems are not engaging. We have been sabotaged." The room erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages. Some tried to rush to the exits. The doors didn't open. They were sealed. "The security protocols have locked us in," Zurkhan said. "Standard procedure during an emergency, but someone has overridden the manual release. So we're trapped." Ambassador Tilrek's feathers had gone pale. "Yes," Zurkhan said, "and oxygen recycling is failing. My team estimates we have approximately 4 hours of breathable air remaining." The Krynoth delegate activated his energy shield. The blue bubble surrounded him completely. "At least some of us came prepared with real protection." Several other delegates activated their defensive items. Shields hummed to life. Personal deflectors created shimmering barriers, but none of those items could create oxygen. None of them could fix broken systems. They were designed to stop attacks, not solve problems. Marcus moved to one of the wall panels. He knelt down and examined it closely. Tilrek followed him. "What are you doing?" the Vryn asked. "Looking for access points," Marcus said. "If someone sabotaged the system, they had to do it through the station's infrastructure. There might be a way to bypass the damage." He pulled out his knife and selected the Phillips head screwdriver. The panel had 6 screws holding it in place. Marcus removed them quickly and set the panel aside. Behind it was a mass of wiring and conduits. "I need light," Marcus said. He selected the LED light from his knife. It was small, but bright. In the dim red emergency lighting, it helped him see into the dark spaces behind the wall. He studied the wiring carefully. "This connects to the environmental controls," Marcus said. "I can see where the system is interrupted." "Someone pulled a relay here." He pointed to an empty slot where a component should have been. Can you fix it? Tylrek asked. Not without the part, Marcus said, but maybe I can reroute around it. He selected the wire strippers and began carefully working with the cables. Other delegates had gathered around to watch. The Krynoth delegate looked down at him with less contempt than before. What is he doing? Someone asked. Something useful, Tylrek answered, unlike the rest of us. Marcus used the small pliers from his knife to bend a connector. Then he used the awl to punch a small hole in a plastic housing so he could thread a wire through it. His grandfather had taught him about electrical systems when he was young. The principles were the same, even if the technology was more advanced. After 20 minutes of careful work, Marcus reconnected the last wire. "Try the panel controls now," he told Zorkan. The security chief pressed buttons on a nearby interface. A vent in the ceiling began to hum. Air started flowing again. "Partial restoration," Zorkan said. "Oxygen recycling is working at 40% capacity. It is not enough for long-term, but it buys us time." "How much time?" the crystalline delegate asked. "Perhaps 8 hours instead of 4, Zorkan said. "But we still cannot open the doors. And the saboteurs are still active somewhere on this station." As if to confirm his words, another alarm began sounding. This one was different. Lower pitched, more urgent. "What is that?" Marcus asked. Zorkan's antennae drooped. "Thermal alert. Someone has activated a heating device somewhere in the sealed section. If it reaches critical temperature, it will breach the hull. We'll be vented into space," Tylrek said quietly. "How long do we have?" Marcus asked. Zorkan checked his device. 47 minutes. The number hit Marcus like a punch. 47. The same number as the features on his knife. He didn't believe in fate or destiny, but the coincidence felt significant. "Where is the device?" Marcus asked. "Section 7, maintenance level," Zorkan said. "Behind the environmental core, but you cannot reach it. The doors are sealed, and the security team is locked out of that area." Marcus looked at the open panel in the wall. Then he looked at the ventilation shaft visible through the opening. It was small, barely big enough for a human. Definitely too small for most of the aliens present. "I can fit through there," Marcus said. "Through the ventilation system?" Zorkan stared at him. "It is not designed for passage. There are fans, filters, and emergency barriers." "But it leads to Section 7? Marcus asked. "Eventually, yes, but—" "Then that's my way in," Marcus said. The Vryn ambassador, who had mocked him earlier, spoke up. "This is insane. You'll get stuck, or cut to pieces by the fans, or lost in the maze of ducts." "Maybe," Marcus said, "but doing nothing means we all die. I'd rather try." Tylrek placed a wing claw on Marcus's shoulder. "You would risk yourself for us? After how we treated you?" Marcus managed a small smile. "You're in trouble. I can help. That's enough reason." He pulled off his jacket and tie, working in just his shirt and pants. He took his knife from his jacket pocket and clipped it to his belt. Then he climbed up onto a chair and hoisted himself into the ventilation shaft. It was tight, very tight. Marcus had to pull himself forward on his elbows, pushing with his toes. The metal was cold against his skin. His knife pressed against his hip with each movement forward. Behind him, he heard Zorkan giving him directions through a communication device Marcus had borrowed. "Continue forward 20 meters. Then you will reach a junction. Turn left." Marcus crawled through the darkness, using his knife's LED light to see. The tunnel was claustrophobic and terrifying. He tried not to think about getting stuck. He tried not to think about the timer counting down. 47 minutes. 47 features. One chance to prove that human ingenuity was worth something in this vast galaxy. Marcus crawled forward into the dark, his knife lighting the way. Marcus crawled through the ventilation system, his LED light casting strange shadows on the metal walls. The shaft was barely wide enough for his shoulders. Each movement forward took effort and focus. His shirt was already soaked with sweat from exertion and the rising temperature. "Turn left at the next junction," Zurkon's voice crackled through the communicator. Marcus reached the junction and turned. The new shaft angled downward. He had to brace himself to avoid sliding too fast. His knife scraped against the metal, and he adjusted it on his belt. 38 minutes remaining, Zurkon said. Marcus didn't respond. He needed to save his breath. The shaft ahead was blocked by a fan. He could see the blades spinning slowly, creating the airflow for this section. They weren't moving fast, but they were large enough to cause serious injury. Marcus pulled out his knife and selected the screwdriver. He found the access panel on the fan housing and removed the screws. The panel came loose, revealing the motor assembly. He studied it for a moment, then used the wire cutters to snip a single cable. The fan stopped spinning. "I stopped a fan," Marcus said into the communicator. "Environmental system will be down in this section." "Understood," Zurkon replied. "Continue forward." Marcus squeezed past the now-still blades and kept moving. The shaft led to another junction. This one had 3 possible paths. "Which way?" Marcus asked. Static crackled. "Signal. Braking. Left." "No. Right." The communication was failing. Marcus was too deep in the station's infrastructure. He was on his own. He pulled out his knife's compass. It was an old-fashioned magnetic compass, something his grandfather had insisted a good multi-tool should have. In space, it was useless for navigation, but it could detect magnetic fields from the station's power systems. Marcus held it up and watched the needle. It pointed strongly to the right passage. That meant significant electrical activity in that direction. The thermal device would need power, lots of it. He went right. The shaft became narrower. Marcus had to exhale fully to squeeze through some sections. His elbows were scraped raw from pulling himself forward, but he kept going. A cable bundle blocked the path ahead, hanging down from a damaged panel. Marcus used his knife's blade to cut through the tangled wires. Sparks flew. He smelled burning plastic, but the path was clear. 24 minutes, Marcus muttered to himself, checking his watch. The shaft opened into a larger space. Marcus could finally stand up, though hunched over. He was in a maintenance corridor. Dim emergency lights showed the way forward. He ran, his footsteps echoing on the metal floor. A door blocked his path. It was sealed electronically. Marcus examined the lock mechanism. It was far more advanced than anything on Earth, but it still needed power. He pulled out the knife's awl and jammed it into the door's control panel, prying off the cover. Behind the cover was a complex array of circuits. Marcus used the magnifying glass to examine them closely. He needed to trick the door into thinking it had received a valid access code. He used the small blade to carefully scrape away insulation on 2 specific wires. Then he used the tweezers to position a small piece of metal he'd picked up in the ventilation shaft between the exposed wires. It created a bridge, completing a circuit. The door hissed open. "Thank you, Grandpa," Marcus whispered. He ran through and found himself in Section 7. The temperature here was much higher. Sweat poured down his face. He could see heat shimmer in the air. Following the strongest heat, Marcus found the environmental core room. Through the window in the door, he could see the device. It was attached to a large pipe, glowing red hot. The thermal device was about the size of a suitcase, covered in alien symbols and blinking lights. Marcus tried the door. Locked. Of course. He examined the door's hinges. They were made of some kind of soft alloy, designed more for a clean look than security. Marcus pulled out his knife's saw and began cutting through the first hinge. The saw was small, designed for wood and plastic, but the metal was soft enough. It took 5 minutes of hard work, but the first hinge gave way. 15 minutes, Marcus gasped, checking his watch again. He sawed through the second hinge. His arms burned with effort. The saw blade was getting dull, but finally the second hinge broke free. Marcus used the large blade as a lever and pried the door open enough to squeeze through. The heat inside was intense. Marcus could barely breathe. He stumbled to the device and dropped to his knees in front of it. The device was covered in alien writing. Marcus couldn't read it, but he could see the construction. He could see how it was built, and he could see that it was designed to do one thing: generate enough heat to melt through the pipe it was attached to. That pipe was filled with pressurized coolant. When the coolant escaped, it would cause a chain reaction that would breach the hull. Marcus couldn't disarm it. He didn't know how. But maybe he didn't need to. He examined the pipe carefully. The device was heating one spot intensely. The metal was already weakening. But what if the heat could be redirected? What if instead of melting through the pipe, it vented somewhere else? Marcus pulled out every tool from his knife that could help. He used the awl to puncture holes in the device's casing. He used the screwdrivers to remove panels. He used the pliers to bend metal components. He used the file to scrape away insulation. With 7 minutes left, Marcus had created a crude chimney system using pieces of the device itself. He angled it toward an exterior wall panel, a weak point he'd noticed in the construction. He used the wire strippers to pull apart cables, then used the corkscrew to twist them into a makeshift frame. The hook held pieces in place. The bottle opener served as a lever to bend metal sheets. 3 minutes. Marcus used the small scissors to cut through the last restraining clip. Then he used the largest blade to pry the redirected vent fully open. The device was now aimed at the wall panel instead of the pipe. When it detonated, the energy would blow out into space through the weakened panel, not into the station's critical systems. He used his last moments to wedge the knife's nail file into the device's control mechanism, ensuring it couldn't recalibrate. Marcus ran. He threw himself out of the room and down the corridor. Behind him, he heard a roar like thunder. The device detonated. A blast of superheated air threw Marcus forward. He hit the wall hard and crumpled to the floor. His ears rang. His vision swam, but he was alive. Slowly, Marcus pushed himself to his feet. He looked back at the environmental core room. The wall panel had blown out, leaving a hole venting to space. Emergency bulkheads had already sealed around it, containing the breach. The pipe was intact. The coolant system was safe. Marcus retrieved his knife from where it had fallen. Several of the tools were bent or damaged. The LED light was cracked, but it had done its job. He made his way back toward the conference sphere, limping and exhausted. When he finally reached it, the doors were opening. Zurkan's team had regained control of the security systems. The delegates stared at Marcus as he stumbled through the door. He was covered in soot, bleeding from a dozen small cuts, and could barely stand. But he was smiling. "It's done," Marcus said. "We're safe." Then his legs gave out, and everything went dark. Marcus woke up in the medical bay. The ceiling above him was white and clean, with soft lights that didn't hurt his eyes. He tried to sit up, but a gentle hand pressed him back down. "Easy, human," a voice said. Marcus turned his head and saw a medical officer, one of the crystalline species. Her body refracted light in rainbow patterns. "How long was I out?" Marcus asked. 3 hours, the officer said. "You had smoke inhalation, minor burns, several cuts, and severe exhaustion. We treated everything. You will be fine." "The others? The delegates?" "Everyone is safe. The saboteurs have been captured. The station is secure." The medical officer's voice held something that might have been respect. "Because of you." She stepped back, and Marcus saw that his room was crowded with visitors. Zurkan stood near the door, his blue carapace gleaming. Ambassador Tilrek perched on a specially designed chair. Even the massive Krynoth delegate was there, having to duck slightly to fit through the doorway. "You saved us," Tilrek said simply. "All of us." Marcus felt embarrassed. "I just did what needed to be done." "With a knife," the Krynoth delegate said. His voice was softer than before, lacking the condescension from their first meeting. A simple tool. We brought shields and weapons. You brought solutions. Zorkan stepped forward. His antennae moved in a pattern Marcus had learned meant thoughtfulness. The saboteurs were from a radical faction, Zorkan explained. They wanted to destroy the Peace Summit, to prevent cooperation between our species. They disabled our systems and locked us in, thinking we were helpless. They did not account for human resourcefulness. I got lucky, Marcus said. No, Tylrek said firmly. Luck is when circumstances favor you. Skill is when you are ready for those circumstances. You were prepared with the right tools and the knowledge to use them. That is not luck. That is wisdom. The Vryn ambassador, who had mocked Marcus at the security checkpoint, entered the room. His feathers were dark with shame. Human Marcus, he said formally. I owe you an apology. I laughed at your defensive item. I called it primitive. I was a fool. You weren't wrong, Marcus said. It is primitive. Earth technology is primitive compared to yours. But effective, the ambassador said. I have learned that advanced technology is worthless if it cannot solve the problem at hand. Your knife solved 47 different problems. My neural disruptor solved none. 47 problems, Zorkan repeated, and 47 features. An interesting coincidence. My grandfather always said that preparation was about covering all the possibilities, Marcus said. He carried a knife like this every day of his life. He taught me that being ready wasn't about having the most powerful tool. It was about having the right tool. The medical officer brought Marcus his belongings. His clothes had been cleaned. His briefcase was there. And his Swiss Army knife, now scratched and dented, with several bent tools and a cracked LED light. Marcus picked it up and examined it. The blade was dull. The scissors were loose. The saw was half broken, but it was still his knife, still his grandfather's gift. It's seen better days, Marcus said. It saved hundreds of lives, Tylrek said. It deserves honor. Over the next few days, Marcus recovered fully. The summit continued, but everything had changed. Delegates who had ignored him now asked his opinion on matters. Species who had dismissed Earth as unimportant now wanted to establish trade relations and cultural exchanges. On the final day of the summit, High Counselor Vexnor called a special session. The delegates gathered in the conference sphere, now fully repaired. We came here divided by our differences, Vexnor said, his smoke-like form shifting. We nearly died because of those divisions, one being saved us all. Marcus Webb of Earth, please stand. Marcus stood, uncomfortable with the attention. The human came to us with what we saw as primitive technology, Vexnor continued. We judged his species as lesser because they had not advanced as far as we have. But this crisis taught us an important lesson. Advancement is not only about power, it is also about adaptation. Zorkan stepped forward. I propose a new protocol for galactic security. We have focused on defensive capabilities. Perhaps we should also value practical skills and versatile tools. I call it the Webb Protocol. The delegates made sounds of approval in dozens of different ways. Clicks, chirps, hums, and frequencies Marcus couldn't even hear. Furthermore, Zorkan continued, I recommend that Earth be granted full status in the Galactic Security Council. They have proven their worth. The vote was unanimous. Later, in a quiet moment, Tylrek found Marcus looking out at the stars through one of the station's viewing windows. What will you do now? The Vryn asked. Go home, Marcus said. Report to my superiors. Try to explain all of this. They will call you a hero. Marcus shrugged. I hope not. I just used a knife to solve some problems. Anyone could have done it. But they didn't, Tylrek said. We didn't. We stood there with our advanced technology and our superior knowledge, and we were helpless. You acted. You adapted. You found ways to solve each challenge as it came. That is what makes humans special. Maybe, Marcus said. Or maybe we're just used to dealing with problems. Earth isn't a paradise. We've got natural disasters, political conflicts, diseases, and 1,000 daily struggles. Humans learned to be resourceful because we had to be. That makes you valuable, Tila Rex said. The galaxy needs problem solvers, not just warriors or scholars. We need builders and fixers. We need humans. Marcus smiled. I'll tell my people you said that. Before he left the station, Marcus attended one more ceremony. Zurkon presented him with a gift. It was a new Swiss Army knife, this one created by the finest alien craftsmen. It had 47 features, just like his old one, but made with advanced materials and technology that would last centuries. For your service, Zurkon said. Marcus accepted it with thanks. But that night, in his quarters, he placed the new knife in his briefcase and took out his old one, the scratched, dented, partially broken knife that his grandfather had given him. This was the one he would carry. This was the one that mattered. When Marcus returned to Earth, people did call him a hero. News agencies wanted interviews. Government officials wanted debriefings. Everyone wanted to know about the human who saved the Galactic Security Summit with a pocket knife. Marcus told them the truth. He wasn't special. He wasn't a hero. He was just prepared. But his actions had consequences that spread far beyond him. Earth was invited to join galactic trade networks. Human engineers were sought after for their practical problem-solving abilities. Earth's make-do with what you have philosophy became valued throughout civilized space. And in the Galactic Museum on Theta 9, in a place of honor, there was a display. Behind protective glass sat Marcus's old Swiss Army knife. The plaque beneath it read, "The Web Tool, 47 features, 1 human, 0 hesitation." The day Earth taught the galaxy that survival is not about having the most power, but about knowing how to use what you have. Marcus visited the display once, a year after the incident. He stood there for a long time, looking at the knife that had traveled with him through so much. A young human approached him. She couldn't have been more than 20, wearing the uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. "Excuse me," she said. "Did you really save everyone with just that knife?" Marcus smiled. "I had help and luck, and a grandfather who taught me to be ready for anything." "I'm starting my first assignment on an alien world next month," the young woman said. "I'm nervous." Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a Swiss Army knife. Not his grandfather's, a new one he'd bought specifically for moments like this. "Here," he said, handing it to her. "You never know when you'll need to open a bottle, fix a connection, or save a space station." The young diplomat took it with reverence. "Thank you, sir." "Just Marcus," he said. "And remember, it's not about the knife. It's about being ready to help when someone needs you." As Marcus left the museum, he patted his pocket where his grandfather's knife rested. It had changed the galaxy's view of humanity. It had opened doors for his entire species. But more importantly, it had proven something Marcus had always believed, that being prepared, staying calm, and doing what needed to be done was its own kind of strength. The kind of strength humans had in abundance, the kind of strength the galaxy was only just beginning to understand.